There's a false belief that once you become rich in Nigeria, all your problem disappears and all your peers automatically become your friends. And that's a lie.
Billionaire businessman Femi Otedola, after revealing in a viral press statement that Tony Elumelu betrayed his trust in 2008 after he went bankrupt.
You can have it today, and you might not be there tomorrow.
I mean, come on. People get sentimental and emotional at times for no reason.
But two of you are in similar business. He's into power business, you are into power business as well.
What's wrong? There can be cross-holdings.
In reality, the deeper you go into wealth and power in this country, the messier it becomes. The rivalries among Nigerian billionaires are not just about who has more money. They are rooted in control, access, government backing, and influence over national assets that most people don't even know that they actually exist. We don't talk enough about the quiet wars between men and women who control core of Nigerian economy. Not because the hate isn't real, but because these people understand that the real battles are not fought with words. They are fought in boardrooms, in courtrooms, in government policies, in media blackouts, in silent blockades, and sometimes in deliberate sabotage. In this video, we are breaking the silence. We are naming names and digging out why tension between some of Nigerian richest people runs deeper. We look into the cement war between Dangote and Rabiu, the banking code war that quietly exists among Elumelu, Jim Ovia, and late Herbert Igwe, the calculated tension between Adenuga and political elites, and how Femi Otedola had to fight his way back into relevance after being nearly erased in history. These are not conspiracy theories. These are verifiable conflict driven by ambition, territory, political connection, and billion-dollar industry. Without further ado, let's dive straight into it. And don't forget to like and subscribe as we head on. This is one of the most significant business rivalries in Nigeria today, but most people don't fully understand how deep it has gone. Dangote and Rabiu are not just two of the richest men in Nigeria or Africa. They operate in the same industry, target the same market, and have both used political assets and industrial scale to dominate critical sectors of Nigerian economy. Spanning from cement, sugar to flour, their companies have gone head-to-head multiple times, but the real fight between them started with cement, and it's only gotten more intense over the years. And here is why. Dangote Cement has long positioned itself as the king of Nigerian cement industry. Through aggressive expansion and years of government support, it became dominant players across the country. But Rabiu's Bua Cement came into that space with boldness, speed, and heavy investment. And yes, especially in the north, where Dangote had been furiously unchallenged. That particular move wasn't just business, it was a direct hit on Dangote's market stronghold, which triggered this war. In 2020, the tension reached a public boiling point. Dangote Group accused Bua Group of illegally mining limestones in disputed area of Edo State. The story made headlines, but Rabiu didn't back down. Bua Group released a full-page statement claiming it had legal license and went further to accuse Dangote of trying to use government influence to cripple his operation. That counterattack was unusual in Nigerian's corporate space, where billionaires usually avoid direct public confrontation. The fact that Bua Group fought back publicly made one thing very clear, and that's because this wasn't a small business misunderstanding. It was a calculated rivalry between two powerful players fighting for dominance. The truth is, both men have built empires that rely heavily on access to raw materials like limestone, sugarcane, and gas. And in Nigeria, controlling those resources is not just about money. It's about who you know, who you fund politically, and what kind of power you can pull behind closed doors. That's why this rivalry isn't just based on business interests, but also tied to influence within government cycle. There are consistent rumors that both billionaires have aligned themselves with different political blocs, especially at federal and state level. These things don't just happen by accident. Yes, you can argue that there is no record of either man insulting the other publicly, but actions speak louder. Rabiu has continued to expand Bua Cement's capacity aggressively. He launched new plants in Sokoto and Edo, right within Dangote's backyard. He's lowered cement prices to gain market share, while Dangote has kept the price very high. At the same time, Dangote's attempt to block some of Bua's mining operation through court orders and federal petitions have continued. No doubt it's a quiet war, but a brutal one. Discussing this rivalry in this video is because it affects millions of Nigerians. When these two clashes, it's not just their egos on the line. It's about cement prices, availability of building materials, and job creation. At its core, Dangote versus Rabiu is not about personal hatred. It's about economic territory. It's about who gets control of the backbone of Nigeria's construction industry. And as long as they both remain in the same industry, using the same government channels and chasing the same markets, this rivalry is not going anywhere anytime soon. But this is just one of the power struggles happening quietly at the top. If you think Dangote and Rabiu rivalry is intense, wait until you see the silent tension existing in the banking sector. Even among men who don't shout but move things behind closed doors. The next story doesn't involve public accusation or legal press release. It's about calculated moves, quiet positioning, and unspoken cold war between some of the most influential bankers Nigeria has ever produced. Let's go into it. No doubt, Tony Elumelu and Jimovia may not have thrown public jabs at each other like Portable and Charles Okocha did, but their relationship represents quiet but intense rivalry that has shaped Nigeria's modern banking sector. On the surface, there is mutual respect. Both are highly successful. Both have built massive financial institutions. But once you look past the polished interviews and award ceremonies, what you find is very calculated battle for influence, expansion, and control. This is not just within banking, but across sectors that determine economic direction in Nigeria. Let's talk about Tony Elumelu first. The man came into national prominence through his leadership at UBA. But what makes him different from others is that he has expanded beyond banking. He moved quickly into power, that is the Transcorp power, oil and gas, and that is Hess Oil and Gas, hospitality, insurance, and even philanthropy. With the widely publicized Tony Elumelu Foundation, every one of these moves puts him in the space that many of billionaires used to dominate quietly. Unlike Jimovia, who is notoriously low-key, despite building Zenith Bank into one of Africa's most profitable banks, Elumelu doesn't just build, he promotes. His media visibility, partnership with international figures, and frequent appearance in African development conversations that have made him the face of a new kind of corporate elite. And that's where the tension began. No doubt, the competition is not about who owns more banks. It's about who has stronger influence over the system. In Nigeria, banking power is closely tied to political and economic leverage.
He's the founder.
For years, Jimovia's Zenith Bank maintained quiet but powerful influence through its ties with government agencies, politicians, and large corporations. These were all calculated moves to secure control over specific part of Nigeria's financial space. Elumelu, however, has refused to stay in any lane. He crosses all of them. And that's why his rise has been without resistance. There has been soft but consistent chatter in elite cycle that Elumelu's approach, given the fact that it's one that blends business, politics, and branding, doesn't sit well with some of the older, quiet billionaires. Now, people like Jimovia prefer their influence to stay behind curtain. They don't chase headlines, they don't brand themselves as the solution to Africa's problem. But Elumelu, on the other hand, doesn't hide his ambition. He wants to be known. He wants to be seen shaping policy and wants to be the world to know his name. No doubt, I will do the same once I become a billionaire. That being said, let's now move to the next story, which is one that involves a man who has tested both powers and betrayal. He had to claw his way back into billionaire cycle after almost being wiped out completely. Can you guess who I'm talking about? It's no other person but Femi Otedola. Femi's story is different from the rest. Unlike the calculated silence that defines most elite rivalries, his fall and rise played in the public eyes. But what many people didn't see was how much of that journey was shaped by silent enemies within Nigeria's powerful business and political class. This story began at his peak of the oil and gas sector, where Otedola was bold, loud, and everywhere. The man didn't hide his wealth. He didn't downplay his lifestyle. He was also regular in media, both locally and internationally. But behind all those photos and headlines, there were quiet moves being made to cut him down. Between 2010 and 2012, Otedola hit a serious financial crisis. His oil company, known as African Petroleum, later Fort Oil, took a heavy hit. His loans were exposed during the banking sector cleanup that followed the global financial crisis. While other big names were quietly protected or given space to restructure, Otedola was left hanging. His debts became headlines, his assets were at risk. His name became attached to every conversation about toxic loans and business collapse. Some said it was just bad luck. Others believed it was a targeted move to reduce his influence. The truth likely sits somewhere in between. But what's clear is that some powerful people in both business and politics were not interested in keeping Otedola safe. At this time, the central bank under Lamido Sanusi was on a mission to clean up ruts in the financial system. But the way Otedola was single-handedly raised out questioned. Some believe that he had become too independent, too connected, and too visible. Otedola didn't disappear. He went quiet, but not defeated. We know this because over the next few years, he restructured his empire, exited the oil sector, and re-entered the power sector through Gerugu Power, a quiet but strategic play that put him back to the game. Then in 2021, he did something that changed the tune completely. Otedola took a surprise controlling stake in First Bank, which happens to be one of Nigeria's oldest and most influential financial institutions. There were quiet attempts to block him using boardroom reshuffles, public drama, multiple reports, and board interference and regulatory pressure. But Otedola stood firm. He eventually got what he wanted, which was a visible seat at the table and a position that re-established him as one of the most powerful individuals in Nigerian financial space. Today, the open hostility might no longer exist, but the memory of the early fallout still shapes how the billionaires moves today. Now, let's shift to one of the quiet billionaires in the country. This is a man who rarely speaks, who rarely appears, and yet controls one of the most powerful private empires in Africa. His name is Mike Adenuga. Without a doubt, this one is harder to confirm, but even harder to ignore. Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Mike Adenuga are two of the most powerful men in Nigeria has ever produced. While one built an empire on political dominance, the other has built his own in quiet business control. Yet for two men who deeply are tied to Lagos, they rarely appear to stand in the same room, even when it matters. Tinubu has controlled the political machinery of Lagos for over 2 decades. His influence spreads across government, business regulations, land allocations, and state-backed economic power. Adenuga, on the other hand, is the billionaire behind Globalcom, Cornell, and long list of private ventures. His action proves that he likes to be rarely seen, given the fact that he doesn't grant interviews, he doesn't do media rounds, or attend many public events. But despite his silence, his influence in business, especially in the telecommunication and oil, is massive. For a long time now, him and Tinubu operated in the same city but very different lanes, at least publicly. Behind the scenes, there have been alleged tensions around land disputes between the two, unspoken clashes over access to certain parts of Lagos real estate. Some say that Adenuga was never fully in Tinubu's cycle and that wasn't by accident but the man's choice. Others say Tinubu has never been fully comfortable with billionaires he cannot control politically. And on the other hand, Adenuga's constant absence in a high-profile Lagos event where billionaires show up, especially the ones linked to Tinubu, has been noted over the years. He wasn't present at major APC celebration. He doesn't appear at political thank you dinners, and even during Tinubu's rise to presidency. There is also talk that the telecom sector, where Adenuga holds a significant stake through Glo, has seen its fair share of political pressure over the years. While MTN and Airtel often enjoy smoother regulatory conditions, Glo has faced tougher periods with infrastructure disputes and government-related shocks. Nothing is confirmed, but many believe these are not just coincidences, but results of deeper political strife. Still, Adenuga never speaks on it. He just protects his empires without making noise. And this shot does raise questions like, why does one of the Nigerian's richest men remain so distant from political structure that practically controls Lagos? Why doesn't he show up even for appearances? Why do other billionaires publicly align while he remains very silent? Honestly, I do not know the answers to these questions. But in conclusion, I will have you know that most rivalries among Nigerian billionaires are not played out in public. You won't see them throwing insults or exchanging words on live TV. But that doesn't mean that they don't have tension that exists among themselves. It just takes different form. These billionaires understand the cost of public feuds, and so they protect their image, their brands, and their access to government. But beneath the surface, the power struggles are ongoing. Some are fighting for market dominance, Others are fighting to keep what they have built. And some are fighting just to be respected in spaces where they were never fully welcomed. The rivalry between Dangote and Rabiu is the most visible, but it's far from the only one. Every name mentioned here has faced resistance, sabotage, or quiet opposition from their own class, which stems from battle for control, for relevance, and their survival at the highest level of Nigerian wealth. And this is just a small part of the story. To end it all, I have this one question. Do you think these billionaires will be called billionaires if they have no government backing? Drop your comments, and if you love the truth and want to be part of the truth, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Till next time, bye for now.